This conference will now be recorded.
Welcome everyone. So we stopped at the requirement elicitation technique of prototyping in the last session, and in this session we will look into the requirements prioritization techniques. So when does requirements prioritization come into picture? So when you work in a IT project and when you're capturing requirements and defining the needs and documenting it, you'd come across a scenario where you find that the number of requirements that are documented or that are being considered for development are way too many. And given the timelines that is there, given the number of, the team size that you have and all, it's not really feasible to get all of those requirements developed. So in such a situation, what requires to be done is you need to see out of all the requirements that are out there, mm, you need to carry out a prioritization process and see which are the key requirements which are definitely needed in the initial launch and which are those requirements which can still wait. Okay. And here, one disclaimer that I need to call it out right now is the requirements prioritization is not a process where the business analyst is the decision maker. Okay, so as a BA, you facilitate the process of requirements prioritization by discussing with the stakeholders and analyzing along with them, brainstorming along with them, and helping them out in the process. But the final decision as to which requirements are more important than which, and all that has to be taken by the stakeholders itself. Because let's face it, at the end, this particular product or service or application which is being developed, it is for the benefit of the client, right? And the client is the one who would be, utilizing it or, providing it to their end users and all. So they are the right people who can really call out the shots and say that this is what I need and this is what I don't need right now. Okay. So you just facilitate the process as an IT business analyst. Now, how do you do this? So there are multiple ways of doing the requirements prioritization. One of the most commonly used technique is known as the Moscow technique. Here it has got nothing to do with Russia. The only point is this MSCW, those stand for some words, and these two O's have been added uh, just like that. So here M stands for must have, S stands for should have, C stands for could have, and W stands for want to have or would have or won't have at all. It depends. So what it implies is when there are, say, some 20 requirements out there, you do your analysis and then you sort out and maybe you categorize them into these four categories. Like, okay, out of these 20 requirements, these eight requirements must definitely be part of this particular product. So those you put in the must have category. And then there are some four or five requirements which are more like, it is good to have, it's going to really help if it is there, but is it a showstopper? Is it like something which will which is a mandatory requirement, like you cannot do without it? It's not like that. It is a requirement, it's good to have, but we can put it on hold for now. So those we'll put it in should have category. Then those which could be added to bring that extra value add or to bring that wow factor into the application, anything like that would come into the could have category. And then the others which can be deprioritized for now, you'll put it in the want to have. So you may do this analysis, you might put some requirements into these four buckets and then take it to stakeholders, present it to them, and they may say, no, 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 this is not should have category requirement, it is also must have for us right now in this initial launch itself. So that sort of discussions will happen among the stakeholders, and they will have a lot of discussion happening around what should be the final list of must have category and should have category and all. And once that is finalized by the stakeholders, you have that list with you. Now, what happens is the development team will pick up the requirements which are in the must have category and develop that. And if time permits, they'll take up the should have category. And if still there is some time leeway and all, then they will take up the could have category requirements. Want to have will usually not be part of the initial launch itself. Okay, so this is how it happens. If you want, you can look into some examples and see about how you can understand the prioritization using this method and all. Usually, you'll come across examples over the net also about some non-IT examples. For example, let's say that there is a completely not related to IT, something like a new model of car is to be manufactured. Okay. Now, in the initial phases, there'll be so many things in a car. You'll have your basic things like your engine, your seats, your steering wheel, your gearbox. You'll have your accelerator, brake, clutch. These are the basic stuff. Then this will be obviously by default falling in the must-have category. Then high definition tail lamp or a sunroof or a high definition speaker system in the car. These are something which could be somewhere in the should have category. And having internet enabled system within the car or something which is related to the latest technology and all is something which is really good to have, but it is like you can put it in could have category. And want to have will be something like some minor automations here and there which are not really going to be much of value add and can be put aside. So this could be one example. You can take some other examples from construction industry or some even IT industry. You can take some apps or food delivery app itself. You can take examples like what should be must have. Order delivery is a must have. Payment is a must have. Restaurant selection is a must have. But what could be should have could be something like tracking the journey of the delivery agent is a should have. It's good to have, but it's not something which okay. So order tracking on the journey of the food product from the restaurant to your doorstep. Now that is something which comes in the should have category because even if that is not there, you can still proceed ahead with your food delivery option. You can still search for a restaurant, you can still select an item, you can add to cart, you can make the payment, and you can get an order confirmation. And you wait for half an hour or 1 hour, you still get the product. Okay, so this order tracking is something which is giving you an extra value add. So that comes in the should have category because of this reason. Something could be like discounts or some welcome bonus on initial products that you order for, something like that. And want to have will be some uh, requirements which are not well considered right now. Okay, so that comes under your Moscow technique. Then you have ranking technique. This is self-explanatory. So what happens is you have a set of requirements. The stakeholders are having this arduous task of putting a specific rank for each and every requirement, saying that this is rank 1, this is rank 2, this is rank 3, and then so on and so forth till rank 20. So the ones which stand at the top would be the most important requirements which have to be prioritized, and the ones which are at the end would not be taken up in the initial phase. But there is a inherent complexity involved in this process because it is not possible to give a single rank. For example, if I talk about the food delivery app itself, now I'll say that order confirmation is as important as adding the items to the cart, which is as important as making the payment. Now, how would you, if these three are the requirements, which of these three would be your rank one, which would be rank two, and which is rank three? You just cannot say, right? So it becomes a little tricky to use this technique for the requirements prioritization. Okay. The third one is the Kano method. So here, okay, I'll do one thing for Kano and $100 and rice method. It would really help to have more discussion by using some example over the slides also. But now I'll just give you a brief of these three methods. In the next session, we will get into more details. So Kano method is about categorizing requirements based on the satisfaction levels. Like there are certain requirements which fall in the basic needs of the customer. There are some which are like performance needs. And then there are some requirements which are like, create that differentiating factor for your product compared to the competitor's product. So you categorize based on these things, and then you create these three buckets. So maybe you can say that the Scano method is similar to your Moscow method, but in Moscow method you have four buckets, whereas here you'll have three buckets. And I'll get into what are those and all with a graph. I'll mention it in the next video. The $100 method again is about you try to bring a consensus. So you take all the requirements, then some stakeholders might press for their own requirement and say this is high priority, this is low priority, which could be conflicting with the priority assigned by another stakeholder. So you try to bring a consensus among them, and then that will make easy to understand which is more important, which is not. Finally, you have a RISE method, which focuses on four specific factors: reach, impact, confidence, and effort. And based on that, there's a calculation done, and this is a way in which you will be able to quantify the and put a score for every requirement, and that helps in proper uh, prioritization of the requirements. Okay, so as I mentioned, these last three techniques, we'll spend a little bit more time in the next videos. Okay, thanks everyone.